everybody. This is Brian David Marshall coming to you from the Tournament Center at Pro Tour-Amsterdam. Take a look at that resume. Take a look at the real life living legend, Kai Budde. He started off this tournament 5-0. You only dropped one game in the extended rounds of this tournament.
I only dropped one game, and I kind of misplayed that. I should have won it if I played it correctly. So yeah.
So the deck you're playing is like a Hall of Fame White Weenie deck here, right? I mean, you're in the Hall of Fame. You worked with almost assuredly Hall of Famer Gabriel Nassif.
Hopefully.
We won't know for another day here to work on this deck. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, first of all, the thing with the format is that the format is really open. There's no best decks. There's no decks that you can expect a lot of people to play. And all the good decks attack you from different angles. You have decks with big creatures like Doran, and you have a very fast red deck. And then you have multiple combo decks, and you have a blue-based 3 or 4 color control deck. And it's really impossible to build a deck that beats all of them. And this White Weenie deck has reasonable matchups against most of the field. It's never going to be an insane favorite. It's probably a very big favorite against Ad Nauseam because of the main deck Canonists and Pressure, and this is also really terrible for them, the Burrenton Forge-Tender, because they need to bounce it before they do the Conflagger kill.
Right.
So that you have a lot of cards against that deck, but otherwise you're probably in the range of 40 to 60% against pretty much everyone. But the good part about this deck is that it's just very consistent. You're not going to mulligan a lot. Like a lot of the extended decks beat themselves. This deck just really doesn't do it. I mean, you have 14 1-drops. I mean, okay, those guys are not amazing, but you have 12 very good 1-drops that roughly do the same thing.
So let's talk about those. You start with Steppe Lynx.
Yeah, well, Steppe Lynx is obviously the most powerful card. Together with the 8 Fetchlands and the 4 Flagstones of Trokair, you can have pretty absurd draws. I mean, 2 Flagstones pump every Steppe Lynx and play with +6/+6, and this can give you a ridiculous draw. But that is the only ridiculous draw this deck is capable of.
Figure of Destiny is another Weenie deck all-star over the past couple seasons.
It's actually 4/4 a lot, and I've had it on 8/8 twice, I think. You do thin out your deck, but you still get to draw a lot of lands, and against a lot of decks you're just stalling the game until you can win with Brave's Elements, or until your Students of Warfare or Figure of Destiny are just leveled up and big enough to take the game.
How good is Student of Warfare?
It's probably the least exciting of the 12 1-drops, to be fair, but it's still a very good card, and it's the easiest to get to the ultimate level, of course, because you can do it over multiple turns. I mean, 6 mana and play it once is fairly tough to reach. But this guy is 4/4 double strike quite frequently.
So now you said you only have the 2 Burrenton Forge-Tenders, but you're able to get them with Ranger of Eos, and in the right matchups. You have a little bit of bitterness towards the Ranger.
I mean, yeah, like this card is just fairly powerful, and compared with my poor invitational card, it's not exactly on the same level. I can see this card being played up to Legacy, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's probably being played in Legacy too. So it's a nice card, I mean. Also, I don't recognize Mr. Rell on this picture, but no, I mean, I'm always happy to play that card. It's like, I like to have some sort of card advantage, and this deck doesn't really offer that, but Ranger fills that hole. Sure. I mean, this is pretty much the late game. You have the Spectral Processions, and you have the Rangers, and that's what you hope to beat removal-heavy decks with.
Right, and then Knight of the White Orchid is just keeping up with everybody. I mean, what's that guy about?
It's a good creature for itself. It's a very good blocker against red, and sometimes you're kind of stealing the first play if they go first. Like, this sometimes feels like you're actually the guy going first, because you get on turn 3, you get to cast this and cast another 2-drop, preferably Crusade.
Sure.
And that gives you a lot of tempo, and then it obviously works well with the Steppe Lynx.
Right. And then now Ethersworn Canonist, this seems like a great card in a kind of combo-heavy field.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best cards against most of the decks. Like, it's surprising how many decks have problems with that. Even the Scapeshift deck often wants to go, when they have 6 lands to play, they want to go Rampant Growth and then cast Scapeshift to kill you, which they can't do under that card. With the Crusade in play, or if you have...
so they honor the pure.
The Honor of the Pure, or if you have a Brave's Elements, it's getting somewhat complicated for them to kill them. Even decks like Doran usually want to go big guy removal at some point in the mid game, and that just stops them cold from doing that. And then there's obviously the games that people can't beat that card. Like
Right.
I played against the Cascade deck that wanted to Cascade into balance, and if that's in play, he's not going to do that. It stops Bloodbraid Elf, of course. It stops Living End, although I don't think anyone actually played Living End, and it obviously stops the Ad Nauseam.
Right. So you talked a little bit about the Brave the Elements down here. So this is just like, this is sort of a falter, but it's also like a counterspell.
In some matchups, you want to protect your creatures, and against all the green decks, you need it to do the final amount of damage. I mean, final amount of damage against the green-red Scapeshift deck, I attacked for like 18, 20 or something in one turn. Like, those guys allow that to happen in mid-game. If you have, like, I had a fetch land in play, I played another fetch land, and then they're power 6, and Braves Elements gets them past the blockers.
What's going on with the... This is like classic Nassif right here. One, just the Miser's Path to Exile.
That's how his sideboard actually looked as well. It was like 2 of this, 2 of this, 1 of this, 2 of this other card. Like, it looks like a tutor-based sideboard, only that it doesn't have tutors, but it worked out quite well. The one path, you could run 24 lands, you could run another 1-drop. We had Elite Vanguard for a while in the deck, but it's pretty unexciting, 2 1-for-1, like all the other cards are so much better. And then we figured 1 path, if you draw 2 paths in a lot of matchups, you're really annoyed. With 1 path you can usually live, and in a lot of matchups it's actually quite good to have 1. So we just ran with 1 path in the end. There's a lot of other versions that have mana ties, but I don't like the card that much. You have the level up stuff, you're actually tapping out quite a lot with the Spectral Processions and the Rangers. I wasn't a big fan of it, but it definitely wins games.
Let's talk a little bit about the sideboard. What are you bringing this card in for, the Mark of Asylum?
That is pretty much the 5th honor of the pure against red decks, against anything with red, like Red Burn or just decks that are playing Punishing Fire and Growth. It protects you guys. Most red decks just have useless cards in the end, which they can shoot you with, but you're generally winning that more. We only had 1 of them, because drawing 2 of them is very unexciting, and drawing a high number of honor of the pure and those is also very unexciting. Having 1 each is awesome, but drawing more than 2 of them total is usually annoying. So that's why we didn't have more of those.
We have 1 more Ranger of Eos in the sideboard.
Yeah, that's supposed to be against decks that have a good late game, and especially against fairies that board in Damnation, because that allows you to reload. I mean, getting those guys is pretty awesome for the late game.
And these guys are sort of just good individually at that point, and you can sort of play them out one at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have to deal with them all the time, because you just level up and they're way too powerful. And also against red decks, you get the Burrenton Forge-Tender.
So you bring in all 3 cards against the red deck.
Yes, yeah. And that kind of locks them out of killing you with burn at some point. If you have 2 of those in play, they just can't kill you anymore.
Yeah, I saw one feature match you were playing against a red deck, and you had 2 Burrenton Forge-Tenders on the board. You had like a Ranger of Eos, you went and got another one, and it was just, he was just like, he wasn't even really trying, he's just kind of like tapping his land and doing his thing, but he just knew he couldn't win.
Well, he can't beat the creatures once they're in play. I mean, sometimes they just, the matchup is not better than 60%, I think. It's maybe more than even, actually. If they get the good draw, and have Searing Blaze and other blockers removal, and just set you way too much back before you're actually on the board, then you can lose. But if you open with this turn 1, that soaks up so much damage, and then eventually your creatures are just more powerful. And they can't burn all of them. That doesn't work, because they need to burn to kill you. And like once Ranger of Eos resolves and you untap, and then you have 2 or 3 of those on the board, then it's usually over.
Sure. See, Celestial Purge, again, a Miser's, one out.
Another 1-off. In a lot of matchups, you don't want multiples against Pyromancer's Ascension. It's a good card to have. I prefer to have Disenchant against them, the Demystify, which we come to later.
Yeah, we have 3 of those at the end.
But
and it's sort of redundant to this.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this serves a different purpose too. Like this, you board in against red decks in case they have Leyline, which I mean, you don't have any life gain creatures, but you really want to get rid of the Leyline, so the protection red actually works.
Right.
There probably should have been a second, but sideboard space is somewhat tight. So.
Sure. This is a card that I always love seeing get a little play.
This is actually a card to have 4 copies of this for a friend of mine and myself. We had to rip up 70 euros worth of Conflux packs, and we had multiple rares twice before we got to 4 of those things. That was not so much fun, but all the French people playing the deck were just at the dealer's faster, and then they bought all of them, and we didn't get them.
Was it worth the effort? Has this card been good for you?
1-2 games on its own.
All right, so that's worth
Memory
it.
Lapse, the balance one, like a cascaded balance, so he drew it next turn. He was not too happy about it. And then another guy, well, it didn't. I probably would have won that match against the Red Green Scapeshift deck anyway, but he had Punishing Fire Recursion, and I lapsed that, so he didn't have a chance to draw the Scapeshift, which would kill me.
Right, that's awesome. So Again, more anti-combo cards. The rule of law, pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what? Those are just sort of a catch-all for.
You have to put it in against the Pyromancer's Ascension if they put in Splinter Twin Pestamite, which is
Right.
really good against this deck because our clock is not fast enough to stop that combo, so you need to actually boil creature removal. And then any deck with Tarmogoyf, Doran, you need some removal, so that's where the process is coming in.
You can't always rely on
You can't
being
rely on
miserly.
the one, no. That doesn't work.
Okay, well, you went 5-0 in constructed. You hit a little bump in the road in the first round of draft. How does it feel getting back into the Pro Tour swing of things?
I've played Worlds in Rome a couple of months ago. I guess it's almost a year ago. I mean, I've always enjoyed it. I just can't get the time off work to play more of those events. But it's fun. I mean, it's good to meet all the people. Like most of the Europeans are here, even people that are not playing. It's always exciting.
Good. Well, it's always exciting to see you show up at these events, and it's even more exciting when you're doing well. So we hope to see you each day all the way through to Sunday.
All right.
You know, give John a little run for his Hall of Fame money. So signing off for Kai Budde, this is Brian David Marshall from the Tournament Center at Pro Tour Amsterdam.